for the last 123 years, and they're absolutely right. You know, we complain about things. We complain about, you know, what's right, what's wrong, who's playing, who's not playing, the league structure that, you know, you quite rightly said at the beginning, Mark, we won't go near it because it is a minefield. Because everybody's got their own opinion, every club's got their own agenda. You're a Wigan fan.
Yeah.
I'm born in Oldham but made in Leeds, so I support both teams, and Leeds is where I made my name and plied my trade and made an impact into that club's history for 20 years.
Yeah.
And the agenda for Leeds is not the same as the agenda for Oldham. The rugby league in my time now is really struggling. There's some very passionate people in the amateur game, but people of St Anne's, Saddleworth, Waterhead, to name but three of the rugby league amateur clubs in the town, offer more to the sport of rugby league than Oldham Rugby League itself, because Oldham Rugby League is more bothered about getting wins, getting promoted, getting more people in the ground, and it's very low down their agenda, getting young kids playing on a Sunday morning.
Yeah, and bringing the kids through is not really the same as it might have been in your early days. That's maybe one of the things that we have seen shift a little bit even more, isn't it? That these teams that are kind of yo-yo teams in those lower divisions don't focus on talent development and retention because they've got an agenda to be in the Championship rather than League One, and that's how they judge the recruitment. The other thing I wanted to talk about maybe a not so great change is something you've talked about this year, and it's kind of the creeping gamesmanship, the creeping lying on and lying down, pretending to be injured that we're starting to see. Yes. That's kind of crept in, hasn't it, during the time SLP's been around? We're not at fault for it, but it has happened during our time.
I hate it, and I have to really bite my tongue sometimes, because as a man and as a character, I'm a half full type of bloke anyway. Glass half full type of bloke anyway, and I believe in trying to see the good in things, and nobody wants to be reminded of what we're poor at. So I bite my lip a lot of the time, but sometimes I just can't. I can't, because I look at it and I think, one, you're cheating, and two, it's soft. It's really soft, and I know that other teams, other sportsmen, we in our game can be quite proud of the fact that we are the sport of the sportsmen. So all the Premiership football players and the rugby union stars that will watch at wonder of our sport can now look at what's going on and see you're not perfect, see your integrity is not where it should be either, and I don't like that, and I think the sooner we try and get that out of the game, the better. We do end up having quite a bit to do with the referees. I've had more conversations with referees in the last 4 or 5 years than I have done ever in my life, and I'm trying to understand, because sometimes when I'm with Stuart Cummins, we'll have a discussion or a disagreement about things, and we don't always say it on air because nobody wants to listen to the bickering.
Yeah.
And I'll say to Stuart, listen, mate, you tell me what you see. You explain to me from your point of view what you see in that incident, and I'll tell you mine, and then hopefully we have an understanding of both. I'm not trying to prove you wrong or prove me right. It's not about scoring points. I just need to be able to see the game in a wider context, and I'm amazed sometimes at what the referees look at, and the discussions we've had about the diving and the contrary to the game stuff.
Is that the players making it harder for the referees?
Absolutely,
that's what we're seeing, isn't it?
I do sympathise with the refs on that. So the referees have almost, and unless you know, you won't know, the referees have almost had this attitude that we're not going to penalise it, and you'll hear it on the ref's mic now and then. Get up, you play acting, and
milking.
Saying to the play, you're milking it.
I don't think milking was a term that we used in the sport 5 years ago, but now it's constant. Yeah.
No, and it should be discouraged by the changing room, and when I came into the game as a young player, I had senior professionals like Charlie McAllister, Tim Street, Paul Round, Richard Russell. If I did any of that shit that they're doing now, they would put me in the corner and say, you either pack that in or you won't play first team again. So I think almost we've got a responsibility, when I say we, the players, I'm still including myself as a player, we've got a responsibility to maintain the integrity of the game as it is when we first come into it, and then hand it over to the next generation in as good as, if not better state than we found it.
I think that's a really good point for us to move on to like the final talking point then for this 200th episode sort of celebration, is what we hope to be talking about and seeing over the next 200 episodes, because we hope to see what you've just said, sort of a return to that integrity on the field that we have all bought into as rugby league people. What other things do we hope we're going to see, do you think, Barry, over the next, so let's say 4.5 years, the next 200 episodes?
I'm a big believer in if you build it, they will come. If a crowd or a stadium creates that atmosphere, and here's where I'm talking to the listeners of this podcast. I'm one of them, by the way. I've listened to a lot of them. I'm one of them. If you go to a stadium, you contribute to the atmosphere. I know from being in the middle of the field, that atmosphere and that intensity, it infiltrates the player's mentality. So when you're playing in a stadium, an imaginary stadium, let's imagine it's in a West Yorkshire town that I won't name and embarrass, but let's just call it Huddersfield for want of a better word. And it's half empty, and there's no atmosphere, and the ball is drilling slowly towards the stand where nobody's in. There's nobody there. There's no atmosphere. There's nobody shouting at you. There's nobody telling you that it's behind you. There's no ramping up of expectation. That player will just simply let that ball roll off the back of the back line there. Where if there's a bit of atmosphere and you can see the whites of the eyes of the people in the crowd, believe it or not, that player will make more of an effort, and it influences players.
Yeah.
Like fans wouldn't believe. And it's no surprise that the best games we have are the big games, the grand finals, the semi-finals, the cup finals.
I always I absolutely love going to the St Helens Stadium that they're in now. I loved going to Nosey Road too, but I love this stadium even more, possibly because there's just a few more people there. But that's as a Wigan fan, and I talk to other fans who find it to be a bit not the same experience. They don't find the atmosphere there, but I'm always there when it's rammed and it's going to be a spectacle. And so that even as fans on the terraces, I think we feed from each other as well, don't we? So I totally buy into what you're saying. I'm getting excited just listening to sort of that.
Yeah. And again, I'm talking to the listeners here. We all can get a bit disillusioned with how our team's playing or what the result is going to be before we get there. And the worst one of the worst is how far we've got to travel. We don't know how lucky we've got it in rugby league. The maximum. I describe this to my Sky mates all the time. I live near everybody, but next to nobody.
Yeah.
So every time I get in my car, I've roughly got an hour to travel, whether it's Warrington Saints, Wigan, or it's Cass, Wakey, Leeds. I've roughly got an hour. Of course, I've got a witness trip, which is just a bit longer, and I've got a whole trip, which is just a bit longer again. But we've got to get out of the habit of saying, oh, it's too far, it's a school night, it's a Thursday. I don't hear other sports complaining about how far they've got to travel. I don't. Now, I know I get paid to do what I do, but I'm a fan, and I would be in my car and I would be supporting my team, whether it was a home game or an away game, if I felt the need to do it. I wouldn't get put off by it being a school late. I always say this to the kids, and I'm a father now. I'm a father of 3 kids, and I say to the kids all the time, embrace life. Don't think to yourself, well, I haven't got time, because when you get to your deathbed, the last thing you're going to think is, I wish that I'd had more sleep. I wish that I'd had less time in my car. What you'll remember in those really gritty parts of your life is the fun, the experiences, and I've been really lucky. I've had some brilliant experiences, all connected with rugby league, whether it's as a player or as part of these daft challenges that I do for the various charities. The Steve Prescott ones are the biggest ones and the best ones. I love working with the Preki Foundation, but we just need to embrace the challenges, the adversity, the travel, create that atmosphere and inspire those blokes in the middle. And we are in a bit of a slump in terms of the overseas quality player that we've got. We are. But I also think sometimes good in this country at uncovering the gem, the Jason Demetrius of this world. Let's not forget that the Iro brothers, I think back to the 80s when we used to bring Kiwis over, and the Kiwis have no reputation at all. The Dean Bells of this world, the Hugh McGanns who have, Hugh McGann played in Australia, Hugh McGann's probably the wrong example, but the players who came into this country, Kurt Sorensen left the NRL because he couldn't make it at Cronulla. He was my role model and idol all the way coming through. I always wanted to be a cross between Kurt Sorensen, Ellery Hanley and Martin Offiah. A real eclectic mix, that is. I'm not sure how I did, but I reckon I carved out my own little Barrie McDermott mould anyway. But
definitely, yeah.
we are in a bit of a slump. We can't get the best NRL players, and that's fact because of a number of different reasons. But let's focus on our kids. Let's focus on our young players, and as I said, let's focus on creating a really good atmosphere at every game that we go to.
One of the questions we had on this week's show actually revolved around Jake Truman and is he the best 19-year-old playing in Super League this year? And I sort of rolled out a load of other players that I think deserve to be mentioned. People like Jake Wardle at Huddersfield, who's really impressed me. People like Sammy Kabula at Wigan, who's only played one first-team game, but is one of the biggest blokes I've ever seen. He's only 19 years old. People like Cameron Scott coming through at Hull and Matty Costello coming through at St Helens, and there's so many. Who do you think? And Jack Walker, of course, at Leeds.
I was just going to say Jack Walker with my blue and amber goggles on. I love watching Jack Walker. He's fearless. He's got some things in his game he needs to learn, and again he's come up through that environment where he's probably had a really quicker route than he should have done, because you need to learn your trade as a young player. If you're in the first team, you're expected to know all the things that you're expected to deliver as a mid-20s, late to 20s player. So he's got some things to learn, like some of those others that you mentioned. Danny Richardson is a bit older than 19, but he's old in his own in the first team. The young front rower that's been playing for Wigan, is it Greg?
Oliver Partington.
Oliver Partington.
He's in your mould, isn't he? He's your sort of player.
I'll tell you what, yeah, he's got big bollocks, that lad, as the technical term goes, and he's a goer. And I do like to see the young forwards coming through. I love to watch, the crafty, creative backs come through as well. We have a shortage in this country of creative halfbacks, and I can remember watching Jake Connor play for Siddle on a Sunday morning. He had all those things that he's got now in his game back then, and I'm there with my Leeds court and as a recruitment and scout, for want of a better word, and I'm thinking to myself, well, you've got potential, but you'll not get away with that shit at top level. Well,
he got away with it for England.
It just goes to prove you, doesn't it? You spend enough in this game and you start to kid yourself and think that you know enough. Well, you don't, because players come along all the time who prove you wrong. Rob Burrow, who's out of the game now as a young kid, I'd have bet my house that he wouldn't have made it because he was too small. But as I got to know him, as I got to understand him as a man, he's probably right up there in the top 5 toughest players that I ever played with, Rob Burrow, because every time he played, he gave that much weight and power and size away. To even hold his own was a sign and a show of how tough he is. So we've got some good players coming through, and I do like Oliver Partington. He's one of a number that we've seen come through. And
Mickey Roletsky as well at Leeds. I'm sure you'll love watching him.
I'm trying not to chuck too many Leeds players and give me.
We've just started to see Lewis Bierneck appear, haven't we, for Hull as well? Your mate Terry's a big fan, isn't he?
I like Gudemond from Catalan.
Yeah, he doesn't take any mess in, In fact, Paul Seguier as well, the young prop forward that played a bit last year, not so much this year. Another one. They're all over the place, aren't they, these tough kids?
They're deceptive, the French kids, when they come through, because they come through typically at 20, 21, 22. They're not like ours that come through as teenagers, because they play in that Saint-Estève system. And you don't want to get down the route of the reserves, but players like we've named there.